All right, so now that it's 9 o'clock, I figure we might as well get started. So my name is Sarah Udelhofen, and I'm from Commute Seattle. We've also got my teammate Ren on the line, who's kind of monitoring the Q&A. And we've also got David Allen from Bikes Make Life Better. So we're excited to get started in this conversation about Bike Back to Work. We're going to dive in really in just a moment. And first things first is that there's a couple housekeeping notes. Attendees are on mute, so we cannot see you. And please use the Q&A feature which you can find in the bottom of your Zoom bar. We'll leave about 5 or 10 minutes at the end for Q&A. And then the slides and the resources will be emailed out afterwards, as well as the recording will be available. So I just wanted to first off dive in with a little bit of setting the stage here. Most of you listening helped your workplace complete the CTR survey back in 2019, so thank you so much for doing that. Here's a little bit of a breakdown of how people commuted into downtown Seattle in 2019. As you can see, 46% came in on transit. So the transit capacity is typically about 135,000 trips per day. And normally buses carry up to 65 or 100 people. And right now, with the social distancing measures that are in place, buses can only carry really 12 to 18 people. And plus, King County Metro is running about 30% fewer trips. And there's some cuts to routes, there's some cuts to frequency. So we really just wanted to bring this to the front of mind. We do not yet know what exactly the transit landscape will look like for the Puget Sound region, but the bottom line is that capacity is likely going to be fairly different as we kind of emerge from the coronavirus pandemic. So as ETCs, as representatives of your company, you're in a really great position to bring this to your company's attention and to help your workplace and your teammates find healthy solutions to get to work. And in the long run, this does have the potential to impact your commute trip reduction goals. So I just wanted to bring that a little bit to the forefront of your mind here as we get started, and I'd love to pass it over to David Allen right now.
Well then, let's get started. Thank you, Sarah, for having me and for allowing me to talk about my favorite subject, which is, of course, bicycles. So what I want to do today is, well, I'm going to start with the obvious. So we have been adjusting now for a couple of months to some pretty severe restrictions in our lives, and we have some new norms, and people are feeling cooped up. If anybody was out this last weekend, I live over in Eastern Washington, and I cannot believe how many cars I saw. People are ready to get out, feeling cooped up and looking for something that makes them happy. And in that context, it's really not a surprise that people are rediscovering the bicycle. Biking is back, and it's back big time. According to GeekWire, rad power bike sales are up almost 300%. Some of you may have seen the Seattle Times article last week talking about bicycle shops in Seattle and Portland are selling out of pretty much all of their popular models. And in fact, there was a great quote. Customers are snapping up unpopular colors like orange and turquoise. And you know, it's not just bike sales that are going through the roof. In that same article, there was another great quote. Customers are bringing out cobweb covered bikes and getting them tuned up. So people are dusting off their bikes, people are buying bikes, and people intend to ride. So this is a survey that was done by Love to Ride recently. Thousands of people, thousands of riders. So this is all bike riders. We're asked several questions. This question was really interesting. Do you expect to ride more in the coming weeks and months? And these bars on the left are for new riders. You can see that that blue bar shows that the vast majority of them intend to ride more, and it's the same with the occasional riders. They intend to ride more. So they're getting their bikes ready, they're intending to ride more, and there's plenty of opportunity. to get out and ride. So in the greater Puget Sound area, we are blessed with having neighborhood greenways. These are slow streets. They're safer, and they're not bike only. They're not biker hiker trails, but they are quieter streets. And then we have a whole system called the Leaf Line. It's hundreds of miles of mostly rails to trails conversions. And so you can bike, with no traffic whatsoever for hundreds of miles. And even the mayor is on board, Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin, who closed down 20 miles of streets so that people can get out and bike and walk. And biking and walking are pretty important because they're really the two modes of transportation where we can slow down what we expect to be an increase in single occupant vehicle rates when we come back to the office. But now is the time. We don't want to wait until we come back to the office. We want to encourage people now. And here's a few reasons why. Disruption of routine, like maybe a pandemic is definitely a disruption of routine, and that is the best time to make a change in your life. Behavioral change happens with disruption of routine, and you have a captive audience to talk to. We're getting used to these kinds of presentations, but more to the point, people are looking for what they can be doing while they're working from home. And biking is the new going out. I mean, biking is one of the few things that you can do safely and get outside and get some exercise. The story behind that picture there is my colleague, Anna, decided to have an impromptu happy hour on the bridge in California. Increased road safety. Already talked about the fact that we have a lot of safe streets. We even have a healthy streets program. But in general, the traffic has been down. And so it's a good time for people to get out on the roads now. And then this last one, it really hurts me to say this, but bikes in lieu of transit. I mean, we have to be honest. There's a significant percentage of people who are not going to be comfortable getting on transit for some time. And like I mentioned before, bikes are one of the few ways that we can get those people that are not going to be using transit, that we can make sure that at least some of them are avoiding the SOV conversion. So what do we do about it? Well, what our company has done is put together a bike back to work framework. And it's based on the behavioral change model that was developed by Alta Planning. So thank you, folks at Alta. The try it, do it again, make it a habit, and then encourage others to do it is their behavioral change model. And so we've taken that and made it relevant to a bike back to work campaign to dust off your bike, which people are doing. I mean, the evidence is already there. Go for a ride. People are intending to do that. But going for that first ride is the most important one. And then that second ride is the second most important one, because that is then moving you along towards making biking a habit. And making biking a habit then will hopefully, with a little bit of a nudge by you, encourage more people to ride to the office when it reopens. So that's our bike back to work framework, and we'll get into it a little bit more, into the weeds a little bit. So practical ideas, starting with dusting off your bike, but this is really for the whole thing. We strongly encourage you to build a communications strategy, and that you start with a survey, a short survey. It can be as little as 3 questions, but you're really trying to identify who is it that's willing to give biking a try when it's time to come back to the office. And then with that subset of folks who have opted in, you send out messages periodically, encouraging them, enabling them, helping to educate them on bike commuting and biking in general. So special newsletters. I mean, if you've got a corporate newsletter, maybe you find someone who has dusted off their bike and they are excited about trying bike commuting for the first time. And, you know, write a story about, okay, what are you doing and why are you excited to do this? You can do educational videos are really easy, actually, and we'll have some in the chat room. We'll have some resources that we're posting. Educational videos, there's so many of them, but I would start at the League for American Bicyclists. They have a lot of great videos on how to basic bike riding techniques. We actually have put together some educational videos on our YouTube channel, which will be in the resources section pretty soon. And then there's videos on, it's called Park, is the name of the company, P-A-R-K. They've got a series of videos on how to basically do any kind of mechanical work to your bike. Live demos, classes, and Q&As. You might want to try to work with the Cascade Bike Club or the League of American Bicyclists. They've got classes that you can take and use. The live demos, if you happen to have like an ambassadors program where you've got bicyclists who are willing to talk to newbies and talk to them about, you know, what it's like to bike and what it's like to commute by bike, you might try to set up live one-on-one demo, live one-on-one Q&A or live demos on, you know, how to dust off your bike and that kind of thing. Mobile bike repair might be the best thing that you can do if you've got any kind of a budget. So what that would be is either have a mobile bike repair come someplace to fix up an employee's bike, or maybe do a reimbursement program to reimburse employees who go to a bike shop and get a tune-up or get their bike fixed. And then push bike media. There's plenty of bike media out there. One of the things that we really like is a documentary that is called Motherload. And it's about a woman who essentially makes cargo biking the center of her world. And they say it's about cargo biking, but it's really about a mother using the bicycle as her primary mode of transportation. And it's a very interesting documentary. So we've got these resources. They're going to be posted now on the chat room, so you can get them, and we'll also be sending them afterward. So number 2, go for a ride. Let's figure out how to get people on that first and second ride. So as part of the communications plan, definitely mention the Leafline Trails Network and you know, complete with map, the Stay Healthy Streets map, the neighborhood greenways maps. Make sure that people know that there's places to bike and encourage them to do so. So you might have an incentives program, for instance, where you tell people to send a picture of them on their bike for a chance to win a gift card. Or you might post stories about people who have gone out bicycling and what they love about it and what they intend to do in terms of biking in the future, i.e. bike commuting. Making it a habit is the big one. It's the big step because we know from research that it takes about 2 months to sort of solidify your new habit. So, you know, it's very easy to fall off the bike, pun intended. So what that means is your communications plan really should include a 2-month span, if you will, at least a 2-month span, where you're constantly sending information and tips and ideas. A few practical ideas. If you have an incentives program or a rewards program or a points program where you're giving people points or rewards for commuting by bicycle to work, temporarily change that policy and give those points or those rewards for any bicycling. And you can even combine that with June Bike Month. So this year we locally have changed the bike month from May to June So use that as a platform to encourage people to get out every day and do their rides. Suggest a test ride to work. So one of the things that's great about having low traffic right now is you can figure out how to get to and from work. So encourage them to do that. And Seattle Bike Blog, for instance, just as an FYI, has a process for finding a route video that's really good, and we'll post that as well. Solo challenges, those you can do in combination with the June Bike Month. You can use their platform and have challenges directly through the platform, or you can set up your own solo challenges. Making an adventure. So there's a site that's called Atlas Obscura. Again, it'll be posted. And it is a site that shows interesting and unique points in a city. And they have one for the city of Seattle. And so you can use that as encouragement for people to go check out parts of the city that they've never seen before. Biking with kids. This is a big one. A lot of people, in fact, a lot of the bike sales are kids' bikes. And people are using the bicycle as a way to engage with their kids, or, you know, at least get a little bit of the energy out. And the Silicon Valley Bike Club actually has a great guide for riding with children, full of ideas and how to get them on the bike. And that'll be posted as well. Advanced education courses. Again, you can work with the League of American Bicyclists, and you can work with Cascade Bike Club. They both offer education classes if that's something that you would be willing to provide for your employees. And even if you don't have a budget for it, you could just point them in that direction. So these are the resources. They'll be posted in just a minute. Finally, the bike back to work piece. So this is where you're most important, where you can nudge people in many ways to get them to take that final step and bike back to work. One of the things that you might want to think about, though, is accommodating bike commuters when they come back to work. I don't know if any of you saw the Luminary presentation last week. Tim Waldrop from Amazon mentioned that they expect a very large increase in bike commuting once they come back to the office, and they're preparing for it. So a couple of things you might want to think about. You might not have enough bike parking, for instance, once people start coming back, and you don't want that first experience to be a bad one. So you want to be prepared. And with bike parking, it could mean a couple of things. You might actually think about policy change. Maybe temporarily, at least, you allow people to bring their bikes to their desks if there's not enough parking. Or maybe you take a couple of the parking stalls and you create temporary overflow bike parking. Staple racks are fairly inexpensive and very convenient to use. And of course, if you have questions, I'd be happy to talk to you one-on-one about your specific situations. And I also want to let you know we have created what we call this Bike Back to Work website. And the website has a great deal of free resources that you can use to build your communications plan and to help encourage your colleagues to get out and ride now and then ride when they come back to work. So with that, I think we're going to show you some of the resources in general, which again will be posted. And then I think we're going to be ready to get into the Q&A.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much, David. That was an excellent overview. And we've got a couple questions coming in, so I figure we can start with those. First one from Tim in the Q&A is, how do you suggest dealing with concerns around shared locker rooms and showers?
Yeah, that's a really great question. In fact, there's a number of companies that I've started talking to that are wondering that same question. So a couple of things. that we're already recommending, and then also I'll let you know that we're in the middle of putting together a guidelines document for safe reentry for bike commuting. So if anybody's interested in that, they can contact me about that. But what we recommend right now is to think about policies and think about maybe staggering work hours, maybe encouraging bike commuters to come in on the half hours or come in even on the quarter hours so that they can, you know, hopefully have an empty locker room or maybe only one or two other people in the locker room. CDC guidelines really put emphasis on porous surfaces. So if you have, you know, like linens or you have cloth furniture, that kind of thing is probably something you should think about getting rid of, at least temporarily. And then, of course, the CDC guidelines around sterilization of the showers at least once a day. And they've got great resources on the types of products that you should use and the frequency and all that kind of stuff. That'll all be in our guidelines document. You know, all of the CDC recommendations with links and all that kind of stuff is going to be in the guidelines document. So if that's something that you end up getting, you'll have all that in one document, one place.
Great. Yeah, we'll make sure to share those out. Another question we've got is, do we expect an increase in riders for Bike Everywhere Day on June 19th?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly can have an impact on that. There's a lot of behavioral research that shows that encouragement, i.e. peer pressure, is a real thing. And so if your communications plan can include an emphasis on joining the bike month, I guess we're calling it bike month challenge, then you know you can get a lot more of that peer-to-peer, and we'll call it peer pressure, but it's encouragement for peers to get out. And then if your communications plan has something special building up to Bike Day, we can really make a difference with that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the great things about Bike Everywhere Day and Washington Bikes Challenge is that it's not just about commuting, it's about getting out anywhere. So you can definitely use that on June 19th to encourage, you know, your staff, your friends, your family to just try biking. And that's a really great part of that kind of celebration. Let's see, we've got another question. What are the best incentive plans you've heard companies implement to encourage biking?
Well, this is a tough one because very clearly the best incentive plan is cash. And not very many companies are willing to go that route. But the real magic bullet in reducing SOV rates and by extension increasing bike rates is that combination of a stick, which is daily parking rates, and then the carrot, which is daily cash payments for coming in any way that's not SOV. So as far as incentive plan goes, that's the number one. But there is quite a bit of research that shows that just incentives and recognition can go a long way in getting at least a percentage of people to do behavioral change. And so even if you're doing something that is as small as putting people into a kitty for a gift certificate based on points or rewards or whatever, those actually have an impact. And I haven't really seen any research that shows that any specific type of incentives or rewards are better than others, except for that cash piece that I talked about.
Yeah, great. Let's see, we've got a whole bunch of questions flowing in. A bit of a follow-up question just on how there are many non-porous surfaces in bike parking areas. What level of disinfectant or hygiene might we suggest for a bike parking user experience from the entry to the exit area? I know that's kind of a difficult one to answer and might be something that they speak with public health officials about and kind of follow public health guidelines, but do you have any additional advice regarding that?
Yeah, I mean, when you do the walkthrough, and that's what I suggest that you do a walkthrough as though you were a bicyclist and use what the bicyclists use, and just take note of what you're putting your hands on. And so that, you know, what surfaces do the bicyclists tend to use more or less. And that'll guide, I think, a lot of what your disinfectant routine is going to look like.
Mhm.
Again, we're going to have some of the official recommendations. I don't know all of those off the top of my head, but we'll have the official recommendations in this guideline document. And there are several ways to get to the CDC site just by Googling it.
Mhm.
You can find everything. It takes a little bit of digging because there's stuff in the CDC site, there's stuff in the FDA site, there's stuff in the OSHA site. So you have to do a little bit of digging if you're gonna do this on your own. But you know, you can always just shoot me an email and I can send you at least a couple of links that I've found.
Perfect. Wonderful. Next question. Many people rely on rental bikes or bike sharing companies. How do you think COVID-19 would impact these programs?
Well, unfortunately, we've already seen that bike share in Seattle is temporarily discontinued. I don't know that it was directly related to COVID, but I don't think COVID helped. I know that immediately there was an upswing in bike share, but that I believe has gone down as people have just done the stay at home order, taking it pretty seriously. It's a really good question. I personally hope that it has a major comeback once people start coming back to work, but that's going to be a slow process. Almost everybody is saying that they're not going to bring more than 25% of the workforce back for quite some time. And a lot of companies are telling people work from home for however long you want, or at least till the end of the year.
Mhm.
So I think that's going to have a real impact on bike share. I think that where bike share is going to go, just from the osmosis knowledge that I've got talking to all those folks, is that there's going to be more of the bike share for a specific client. So right now, bike share is for a whole city or even a region, but I think a lot of what's going to happen is these bike share companies are going to make side deals with large companies that want to have access to those bikes for their employees, or some sort of a hybrid model of getting special access for the folks that are in my company or part of my, you know, organization.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm definitely feeling that it might go a similar route to that of looking for kind of corporate support to keep bike share afloat, because it is incredibly valuable for so many people across the city. Kind of the second question within that was, how could we engage people who want to bike but don't own a bicycle? And that automatically points to bike share, but you feel like there are any other creative solutions that you heard of?
There have been some great solutions with companies that I've worked with on essentially a rent to own kind of a scheme. So you allow employees in some way or another, I've seen a lot of different models on this, you will allow employees to rent a bike or to borrow a bike for a certain period of time. And then if they meet the goals, let's say you say that as long as you commute 3 days a week for the next month using this bike, then you're eligible for, you know, whatever you're eligible for. So what I've seen is reimbursements for purchasing the bike,
Mhm.
or various other incentives or rewards that help bike commuting a little easier. So the variations on, and I'd be happy to talk individually with folks that want to go in a little deeper, because the variation is all over the board, both with budget and with the process that they're doing to loan out the bikes.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. So I know that we are at time of 9:30 right now. So if there are people who need to hop off the call, we completely understand. But I know both David and I have a couple minutes to answering the last two questions that are on here, and some more might come in. So just wanted to say thank you all so much for joining. We really appreciate it. We'll send out the recording and the resources after. But if anyone's able to keep on, I'm going to dive into the next question, which is, do you know of any plans to increase bike lanes or streets in downtown Seattle? Is there anyone that we could put pressure on in order to help increasing these?
Yeah, yeah. Bike advocacy is a personal passion of mine. I worked with the Bellevue City Council when I lived there. I worked with the Bellevue City Council to get their first protected lane there on 108th, and that was a heavy lift. And what I would say about that is the best organization through which to do that is the Cascade Bicycle Club. They have a lot of sway with local officials, and that's how I got involved. I went through the Cascade Bike Club, and they coached me on how to approach the Bellevue City Council and what ways that I could pull together a coalition, which is actually what we did. There was probably 5 or 6 of us who attended almost every city council meeting and almost every transportation subcommittee meeting. And we made it very clear that there was a contingent in Bellevue. We all lived in Bellevue. There was a contingent in Bellevue that really cared about this. The other piece that was really important was that the Bellevue Downtown Association supported us. And once the businesses come and support these kinds of things, that is when it really puts pressure, because you've got then both citizens and business, calling for the same thing. And the best part about getting businesses on is that it's usually businesses that are the biggest detractors. The businesses are worried that taking away their parking is going to impact their business negatively, which, interestingly enough, almost all of the data shows that it helps most businesses to encourage people to bike to their business. They actually make more money from bicyclists than they do from people who come in cars. But again, getting the business community behind you is a big win.
Yeah, I definitely agree and echo all of that. I feel like we have such great advocacy groups here in Seattle. Cascade is a huge one. Seattle Neighborhood Greenways is great. They have local chapters around the city, and a great way to engage and learn about kind of your neighborhood and meet other people and learn about how to advocate for these things. It's always great to go on a lot of SDOT's different websites. They have great information and great updates on bike projects that are going on. I don't think a lot of people are aware of how much work that they put into those. So between them choosing to make the Safe Healthy Streets permanent and continue implementation on the bike master plan, it really feels like they're putting a lot of effort behind this, and that they know people are looking for safe ways to get around. So
yeah, and I would say now is the time. I mean, the bike is king here for a short period of time. And it's a really good time to press our local officials to make it safer.
Yeah, definitely. We've got one more question on here before we wrap it up. Oh, now there are 2. I hear that e-scooters will soon be allowed in Seattle. Is this true? What do you see as the future of this mode?
So the e-scooter is going to be much more popular in the downtown areas than bike share. And we already know the numbers from Lime and others about how much more popular they are on a sunny day than a bike. And it's because not everybody feels comfortable on a bike, but just about everybody feels like they can, handle an e-scooter. So I see e-scooter as the big growth in micromobility in the next few years. We're working with one company that's developing a new campus that's going to be a car-free campus. It'll be, well, depending upon when we can get back to construction full time, it should be done in 2024-ish. So they've got about a 4 or 5 year time horizon where they have to think about the future and what is the future going to look like on a car-free campus. And we're telling them that the micromobility wise, the bike will be really, really important, but the scooter is going to be just as, or maybe even more important. And the scooters, by the way, one of the things about scooters that I think is going to be a challenge, but also an opportunity, is that the first mile, last mile is so easy on a scooter. And I think the problem we're going to see is there's not going to be enough parking at the major transit stops. So people will eventually start using transit again. And especially when we get light rail throughout the city, there's going to be, I think, a parking problem. So if anybody is doing real advocacy work or wants an issue to work on, you know, I think making sure that we have enough parking for micromobility at all of the major stations that are close to where people work is going to be a real hot topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I know that the city was working on creating kind of a e-scooter like guidelines of sorts, and they've done a lot of studies looking at how scooters have come to different cities and making it really successful for coming to Seattle. So I know that they've been in the works with that, and I believe scooters were originally supposed to be coming at some point this year. Obviously, we don't know the definitive timeline for that at this point, but I definitely think that it's coming and it's a great solution for a lot of those first mile, last mile tidbits. So yeah, very excited. And then are there guides that are based by age that you are aware? If I have older employees that want to start. I definitely know there's a lot of different maps out there, and I've come across a few. There's a great city map where you can overlay different types of routes. There's also a lot of maps through Seattle neighborhood greenways that are more neighborhood specific. I know there's one for Ballard and Fremont area, for example, so we can also share out some of those resources. But yeah, David, if you have anything to add to that.
I just missed the question. Can you tell me what it was again?
If there are guides that are based by age that you're aware of.
The only stuff that I see that's age related is the Silicon Valley Bike Club that I mentioned that they've got their riding with kids. So those guides I think are great for getting your kid on a bike and riding safely with them. I've not really seen guides that are different from that. I would say Rad Power Bikes actually has done a really good job of building a community of bicyclists. And I follow that every once in a while, and they do actually talk about riding and, you know, the issues that they see and those kinds of things. And that, I only mention that because the average, I've talked to Rad about this, the average person that purchases a Rad Power Bike is retirement age. And so they're really talking about, you know, adult bicycling and getting back on the bike. There's a lot of chatter about getting back on a bike after many, many, many years. So that's actually it's an owners group, but anybody can join it. And I believe it's just a Facebook page.
Great. Wonderful. All right. Well, that appears to be all the questions for now, which is really great. Thank you so much for those who stayed on and listened to the last of our questions. This is a topic that I know David and I are very passionate about, and we're always happy to talk about it. And you're welcome to reach out to Commute Seattle and to David with any questions that you have or help that you're looking for. Yeah, but that's about all. Great.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, nice to see you. All right. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.